Good Wednesday evening, everybody. Hope everybody had a great Christmas. I'm doing our Instagram live tonight from my home because I have a sick pup. So you see my Christmas tree in the background. Let's give everyone a second to hop on. So with Christmas finishing up and us getting ready for the new year, just thinking how this time of year everybody starts setting their goals for what's coming up. And one of the common New Year's resolutions that we hear about are running more consistently or getting more exercise during the year. And I think it's a great way to hold yourself accountable to those goals is to go ahead and sign up for a race and put that on your calendar and keep you going and eyes on the prize there. So I just wanted to talk to you guys tonight about how you should set up a plan to stick to that and what that should look like to do so safely and in the most effective and efficient way that you can. So first thing, like I said, I do think if you're wanting to run more often and you're just kind of running casually, one of the best things you can do is to pick a race, set a time, set a goal, and start there to hold yourself accountable. So the reason I recommend that is when we're creating a plan, it can be really helpful to know what we're working towards specifically. I always recommend working backwards. So you need to make sure you give yourself ample time. That being said, I typically recommend getting yourself a calendar, write this out on the calendar so you can work your way back that way and see just how many weeks and how many days that you have and how it's going to fit in your schedule. So we'll talk through a few of those ideas. We'll probably use a 5K for just example. It's an easy way for us to break that down because it's a good starting place for a lot of people, but a lot of these rules are going to apply to other distances. There's always going to be differences with experience level, but that's what we're going to use today, just to give some general ideas. So, like I said, we want to work backwards, and in order to do that, we need to know kind of what it's going to take. So let's say we want to do a 5K and we want to have, hopefully we want a PR there. Maybe it's your first 5K and you just have a time goal in mind. I always like to think of key workouts. So picking 2 to 3 workouts that you feel that if you're able to accomplish and do well, that you're going to know, hey, I'm prepared for this race. This is where I need to be. So we'll just use for the 5K, I wrote down a few examples. These examples are going to be a little bit different for everybody and their experience levels. So these are just very generic. We're going to use a 3 by mile at 5K with 90-second recovery, a 6 by 400 at mile pace with 90-second recovery, and maybe a 40-minute cut down tempo. So 30 to 40 depending on your experience. So that's your key workouts. That would be your goal, to be able to hit those workouts successfully between 1 to 2 weeks, probably closer to a week and a half to 2.5 weeks prior to your actual race. Obviously you're not going to hit these all at one time, so you got to give yourself a little bit of a span there. But from there, I would give yourself about 4 or so weeks to build up to that point. So what is that going to look like? Maybe you're going to work backwards essentially, just like we are from the race, but on a smaller scale. So let's look at the 3 by mile at 5K, just to make it a little bit more attainable. Maybe week 1 of your build-up, you're doing 6 by 800 meters at 5K pace. And then maybe week 2, you're doing 1 mile at 5K pace, and then 4 by 800 at 5K pace. So we're still getting the same volume, but we're working on building up how long we're holding that pace. And then maybe week 3, we do 2 by mile with 2 by 800 at 5K pace. And then the week after that, then we are able to hit that 3 by mile at 5K pace with 90-second recovery. And that's kind of generic. You're probably going to want some down weeks in there and a little variety. Just a general idea, kind of how we look at that. And then let's look even bigger picture. Those can be some pretty aggressive workouts, so we're not going to just jump into those workouts 4 weeks before our race. So you want to give yourself some adequate time prior to starting that build up. This is probably going to take, it depends where your current fitness already is. This could be 4, 8 weeks, maybe longer, depending on if you're starting from 0. But I would say give yourself about, before you go to that build-up phase, give yourself about 3 to 4 weeks of being able to do 1 to 2 tempo workouts a week. And then prior to that, I would give yourself 3 to 4 weeks of just building aerobic volume. So generally speaking, for a 5K, I want people to be able to do 40 minutes consecutively before we even start looking at some of these interval workouts. Again, it's different depending on fitness level. For some of my higher level clients, I want them to be able to do much further than that before we start going into a build, but at least 40. And then a couple of those runs a week should have some strides at the end as well. So be able to do that for about 3 to 4 weeks, building volume. And before that, depending on fitness level, this may include like a run walk program. This might include just getting into the habit of running. That can be hard in and of itself, getting up every day and getting that done. And depending on kind of your history, your training history, and what things look like for you, this may include more of a heavy strength phase, something like that. So do whatever you need to do to get to that point. Look at where you're at, what you're lacking. It's always helpful to talk to a coach or a PT and get a good idea of what areas need work, right? And kind of look at the whole picture. And then spend about 3 to 4 weeks building that volume, adding some strides in. Then after that, you'll spend about 3 to 4 weeks adding in some tempo runs throughout the week. And then after that, we're going to enter your build-up phase. That's going to last about 4-ish weeks, building up to those key workouts that you laid out in the beginning, and then give yourself a couple weeks to taper down. And so that can be a good, just rough general timeline to start with when you're planning an upcoming 5K race, perhaps, with the new year. And then I would also make sure in the meantime that we're not forgetting about down weeks, especially when we're building up. It can be really easy to get impatient and think, hey, there's no real reason for me to have a down week. But I generally recommend, like, after every 3 weeks of building mileage or volume or intensity, to have a week where we chill out, back things down. Depending on what you were working on, maybe we back down the volume, maybe we back down the intensity. Usually, as we get further in to this training block, I'm going to back down the volume, not so much the intensity, but it's a little bit different for everybody and everybody's situation. And then pay attention to your body. Maybe you didn't have something, maybe you had something planned for the day and your body's saying, hey, that's not going to happen today, and that's okay. Just because you write it down on a calendar doesn't mean you can't change it, because that's what your body's telling you it needs. Your body doesn't work off of the calendar sometimes. So, and if there are any other questions, feel free to put it in the chat. And if you're watching the replay of this, feel free to leave a comment or send us a message about it, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. So happy running, everybody, as we get into the new year, and we are gearing up for some of those New Year's resolutions. Let us know if there's any way we can help. All right, have a good night, guys.